Hi, welcome to Bridget Podcast. My name is Christel, the founder and creative director and AI XR innovator at Cherryadi Digital Media. With a vision of bridging the generational gap of technology, one quality conversation at a time, in this podcast we will be featuring insightful conversations with experts in mental health, creative technology, education, and human-computer interaction. Expect to take away practical insights from every conversation that you can implement to your daily life in your different roles and spheres of influence. Together, let's co-create a safer digital future for our next generation and be a part of the change as we shape the future together.
Hello everyone, good to see you again. Actually, this is our first podcast recording. Super grateful to have you guys watching this. We hope that this series of podcasts in advocating for mental health for young people would actually help you, your children, your family, your students, and whatever community that you are involved in. Here I have Dr. Tiffany with me. Super excited to unpack connecting parents and teenagers in this gaming era. So, why is this topic important, Dr. Tiff? Given that parenting itself, I'm like, hats off for my mom, hats off for you, hats off for, all the moms and the dads as well, right? Mm-hmm. It's not easy because children, especially teenagers, when they're trying to find their identity, and that phase of life, what to do next, what they aspire, what's their purpose, right? It's I can reflect to back then when I was just as wobbly. And I think, in this very fast-paced moving digital era where young people get to live in a new reality that not like the generations before them have never lived in that space before. I think, people like us, realize it or not, as creative technologists, game developers, we built this world for them without knowing how it actually feels like living in that world.
Yeah.
So why do you think it's important for parents to be, aware of this new world?
Well, it's a huge question. But, I think as teenagers, if you remember, we always think that our parents don't understand what it feels like to be in our world. So that's not new. So basically, all we need to do is adjust the parameters to which we're dealing with. So where we used to not understand the new music or the new fashion or the new fads or what have you, now we've got this whole world of technology that a lot of adults have no insight into. It's not necessarily that as parents we need to understand the technology, and it's not necessarily that we need to get in there and use it and know everything about it, but we certainly need to understand the dangers, the risks, the way it makes our children feel, the potential damages to their mental health, their well-being. We need to understand the normal parameters around balance, exercise, good food, interactions with other people. So I just think it's another layer. It's a very, very big layer, and it's a very unknown layer. But if we apply the same principles of parenting, which is to communicate, to be connected, to allow a certain amount of freedom, trust, but also exploration, understanding that is their time. Teenage years are about rebelling, exploring and withdrawing from us, which is a really tough pill to swallow, but it's really important for their development. If we can embrace that and do what we can to understand the realms of the new technology, then we're doing the best we can.
I want to highlight that. So you're saying that regardless of which era it is a phase that teenagers are actually just trying to find and explore their new ways anyway.
Absolutely. So it's natural and normal for teenagers to withdraw from the parents at a certain age, tweenagers, and to sort of reject everything that we have to offer, all of our wisdom, and then to step into their peer group and look there for belonging and acceptance and validation and how they fit in. Yes. So they used to get that from us and their family, and now they don't want that. They need that security, but then they need to take that sense of self that they've developed under us or with us, and then take that out into their peer group. And that's where they sort of start to practice what they've learned, test the boundaries, practice relationships. And in doing that, they do reject a lot of the learnings, but it's only generally temporary.
Right.
To explore, push, rebel, discover who they are, test it out with their peers, and then eventually in the early 20s, generally, they come back to us. And so we need, as parents, we need to set them up as best we can in those early years so that when they're out there, we've done what we can to prep them for good mental health and practices. Wow. I mean, there's obviously lots of outside influences, but it's natural, it's natural for a teenager to not want to share everything with us. And there's certain things that we can do to keep that connection there, but it's not going to be the same as when they're 8 or 7.
Yeah, it's interesting when you say the peer factor there.
Yeah.
So recent statistics says that Gen Z, which is our current teenagers, they spend 2 times of their awake time with friends in game, more than in real life.
Yeah.
But the thing is, in game, right? People can have anonymous identity. People you play the game with that same person, but they may not be who they really say they are. And then, funny enough, like one of my best friends, 2 of them actually, spends more of their social lifetime in game. They live in a remote area in New South Wales. And like, the cool thing is, once a year, they would actually go out with these friends that they play games with.
Yeah.
For like, more than 5 years already now.
Yeah.
So now the thing is, if parents are not familiar with this, if not aware with this fact, right? I've heard some of my, mentors and friends who have teenagers. I mean, obviously, I'm kind of younger, right? But I know they love their family, right? Amazing, lovely, teenagers as well. But once their teenager tell them about their games, right? They would kind of not shut down, but don't relate.
Yeah.
The thing is, this is what I see, Dr. Tiff, and would love to hear what you think about this. It's like, if the parent think that game is just another activity and it's just something fun for them without realizing that this is actually a whole real community that may not be real, then there would be a discrepancy, especially when the teenagers start talking to the mom or dad about their game, and mom or dad doesn't seem like they want to listen. And then when they actually have that problem in that space, right, they would think they don't understand and they won't listen anyway.
Yeah. Okay, so there's 3 things I want to come back to in there, so hopefully I remember what they are as I go through each one.
Yeah.
The first one is, in terms of this unknown and making friends that you don't really know, there's always going to be a great community, and there's always going to be a scary community, whether you're in school, uni, Rundle Mall, or the internet. So it's about being aware and being safe around both of those practices. Yeah. The second one I wanted to say was you said that you pretend, sometimes you're out there and you're pretending that you're somebody else. Well, I would argue that as a teenager, most of us are trying on different personalities anyway. Right. So we're out there and we're okay. So we're not completely anonymous because we show up in our physical selves, but we're always, as teenagers, reinventing ourselves. Who am I going to try and be? I'm going to be this type of person. Now I'm going to be the class clown. Now I'm going to be serious and studious. And then I'm going to be, the popular kid. Then I'm, whatever it is, you're always trying out different personalities.
In real life. Right.
And so now we've got this opportunity where teenagers can actually be different people in this community where they can really
dress up as someone else or be something else.
Yeah,
really.
so it's normal, but it's magnified a lot.
Yeah.
In terms of, and I mean, again, that has its positives and its negatives. So you're not going to get, beaten up if you present incorrectly, or if you're not accepted as a personality, you can just disengage that profile and move on to another one. But in terms of the connection with parents, this is one of those things that parents can do to maintain some form of connection if possible. A rule that I've always promoted and used myself is, if my daughters come to me and share mundane kind of whatever about their day, I need to be interested in that. I need to engage in that. If they come to me with what might seem like a really silly problem, I need to take that seriously. Because what today is a silly problem, if they know they can come to me and I'm going to engage with that silly problem, then when it's a big problem, they know that I'm going to listen. If they communicate their day-to-day little bits and pieces that they go through each day, and I dismiss it, or I judge it, or I'm critical, or I don't care, or I don't give them the time, then why would they bring stuff as it becomes more important and more maybe important for me to know about, so that I'm aware of what's going on. So you really have to start early, and anything and I can say only, obviously everybody's different, but it certainly is working for me so far. I mean, I have a 14-year-old who has been very open with me throughout her whole, youth, and she's still she's just embarking now, but she shares most details with me, whether there's problems at school or with herself, or exciting new things, or what happened, between the group at school. And I don't and as a parent, I think the important thing to do is to just reserve reaction and reserve judgment.
Poker face.
You can freak out in the middle, in the inside, and you can have a panic on the inside. But again, if she comes to me, or if a child comes, or a teenager comes and says, this happened, I've made a mistake, this has gone wrong, I'm worried about this, and we start attacking and judging and punishing, that's just going to shut them down. So what we need to do is respond openly, work through things with them. And when it's not to say there shouldn't be a punishment or a consequence, maybe, depending on what it is, but it's about the timing, the communication around it, and how it's managed in the moment of crisis, because that's going to tell the child whether or not they can come to you when something really goes wrong.
Right.
So just maintaining and doing connection the way they connect. So doing this doesn't work with teenagers. But sitting next to each other, facing forwards, maybe in a car, maybe on a shopping trip, maybe off to get ice cream, that works. Because it's less confrontational, just casual, you're just chatting about things and day, and then stuff comes up, but constant questioning and interrogation and tell me what happened and what is that doesn't really work with teenagers.
Wow, that's amazing. Mind-blowing.
Walks on the beach. So anything where you're kind of side by side tends to open the communication, and also the trust. So it's about maintaining trust with the teenager. This is all just relational parenting stuff, but when we're going into a world of unknown, besides being very well educated as much as we can as adults around the technology, around the dangers, and sharing that, which I think we're going to get into a little bit later anyway, about how to do that, maintaining that relationship is the same with that world as it is in everyday world. We're still humans. We're still humans, and we're still teenagers with all the same feelings, all the same experiences, all the same fears and curiosity and rebelliousness and nature that we have, whether we're in an AI environment or online, or whether we're facing real people in the classroom. So,
well, the thing is, if parents are not exposed to the technology or like the game that they're playing and or like VR in this sense, for example, funny how like last night we just have this panel talks about like the creative technology side of storytelling, right? And we literally get like, people watching the screen of someone in the VR headset looking into a beautiful garden scene that we built, right? So the audience have seen what the volunteers or like the people who volunteer experience in flat screen. And then we get them to switch, right?
And I literally asked this next person, go like, so you have seen the scenario and like the garden when you were sitting there. Now that you are in VR, how do you feel?
Yeah.
And like they say it's different. And then I was literally asking, so you are now in the lab, which one feels more real, in the lab or in the garden?
Yeah.
In the garden, they say.
Yeah.
And then I was like, so how does it make them feel, right? Funny how one of the the player actually say it feels romantic.
Romantic.
Yeah. I didn't see that coming.
Yeah.
No, it's like refreshing, peaceful, and then that, because they were like butterfly flying in the garden and stuff. But I think what I'm trying to emphasize is, I wonder if parents actually need to try it out for themselves.
Yeah. I mean, why not? Like, why not try it, And that's another part of that connecting is, when a child invites you into their world and we say no, I mean, you're shutting the door. It's not to say you've got to do everything that they want you to do. You're not going to go and get a belly button piercing together maybe, but
That's awkward.
I don't know why. That's a whole other topic. But absolutely, I don't love scary rides, but my daughter said, Mum, please come on this roller coaster with me. And I said, yeah, all right, because it was so bonding to see her see me scared and her have fun with me. And then we did try VR together because I agree, I want to know what she's loving because she loves it.
Yeah.
And I think if parents are able, not every parent is able to experience everything in the same way, but if there's an opportunity to share in your child's love of whatever they're doing or play the game with them or explore the VR and really understand it, not every day, but just to get a sense for what they're experiencing, why wouldn't we do that as parents? Because of course then we can connect around it, we can talk about it. As a parent, to ask your teenager questions and get them to be the expert is a really bonding experience.
Wow. Okay.
To say, what is that? How does that work? When we ask them to, not you, when I ask my daughter to help me with the tech on the phone, she feels good and it feels bonding. So it's a great opportunity. And I think as an older person, I want to know what the new technology is. I'm probably not going to use it in the same way and I'm probably not going to do gaming, but I want to know what AI can do for me. I want to know what VR's like. And if you can do that with your teenager, that's just a bonus.
I wonder, I'm not a parent myself, but like when their parent does that, would the teenager feels like, you know what, I know this world more than mom and dad.
Yeah.
And I guess it like if I were that child, right, I would feel like, oh, actually mom do cares.
Yeah.
But like, even if she doesn't understand the world, right? But then this is just a curious question, right? Would it backflip to go like, if I have problem in that world, mom don't even understand that world?
I don't think so.
You reckon?
No, because I think that what you're relying on in that situation is not knowledge of the world, but the connection with your parent.
Wow.
And so if you've shown an interest, if you're connecting around that interest, if you've shown that you care enough to try something out of your comfort zone, and even if you can't, if you're asking questions about it, or I love that you love this, let's take you there and do some, or whatever it is, then if there is a problem, I'm not going to understand the tech side of it. I'm not going to understand how to play the game, but I'll be there for the emotion that she's feeling or the problem that they're feeling, and that's the important part, and that's what we're trying to maintain even through the disconnect around the tech understanding and knowledge.
Now, here is our recent finding, because like this thing we'll dig into like some research statistics and stuff, right? Most parents don't even know that their children are facing anxiety.
Yeah.
So like when the reality is young people now escape to the gaming world because they're trying to avoid stressors and like manage anxiety. So what would be your tips for parents to maybe like a lookout? Would that be like, would that mean like more screen time means more awareness or like more?
I wouldn't have thought so. I think, for me, it's always more connection time. Is more awareness. I think.
Wow.
I think screen is fun in moderation, like anything. I don't think that. And I don't think that children are going to go up to a parent necessarily and say, I'm feeling anxious. That's just not what teenagers do. Yeah. It's not what most people do. But there are obvious signs. So there's the obvious signs around withdrawal, depressed mood, not doing fun things, not wanting to eat, being teary, change in dress, change in activities, all of those, that you can Google and find signs of depression or anxiety. There's a fine line between that and the normal standard lack of talking and response from a teenager. So we've got to be really mindful around watching that.
Yeah, right.
I just think that parents need to, this might be, controversial, but there is a lot of screen babysitting that happens. There's a lot of people that kind of go, it's easier to parent if I pop a screen on. And it is easier to parent if you pop a screen on. But what you're missing is the opportunity to have the conversations, to have the arguments, for siblings to fight and to be bored and to play and to do all the stuff that we had to do, not so much you, that I had to do growing up and our generation had to do growing up, that you notice and you see and you watch them work it out.
Yeah, right.
If we're allowing and promoting screens constantly, like in the bedroom, overnight, till all hours, straight after school, all of that, then when does the other stuff come in? It still has to be balanced. And I love technology. I love it, and I love that. That we can connect through communities online, especially for certain groups in society. It's even more important. But so is face-to-face, so is fighting with your brother and sister, so is doing the dishwasher, so is coming and sitting at the table without a screen, playing outside, kicking them out of the house, being bored. All of that stuff is really, really critical for development. So
being bored
is critical for development. It's when we start to daydream and wonder and notice things and question and self-reflect and find things to do and notice the world. And yes, there's lots of educational stuff in tech and there's lots of engagement, but I think one of the mistakes I hear a lot is that parents think that if they're going to take a screen away, they've got to give them something else to do. And that's just...
Yeah, wow, that's
not
true.
Not true. I don't remember... My generation's parents never provided me with a to-do list of... It was, there you go. We'll be home at 6, enjoy the day in school holidays, for example. And it was... We would play games, we would dress, we'd do all the old stuff. But there's nothing wrong with the tech coming in, but it can't be everything.
Yeah.
Because it increases anxiety, it increases isolation, it increases depression the more connected we are. And so that's why your stuff is so incredibly important, because you are like combating it with mental health and awareness, and you're kind of getting in there where it can grow. And you're fighting it at the same time, which is just beautiful. But not everything does that. And so we've got to have balance.
Thank you. Yeah. And also, this is a real question from one of my friends, right? Does screen time actually increase anxiety? Because, the context is she noticed her teenager being more cranky when they spend more time in game.
Yeah. Yes, and yes.
Right.
It decreases your concentration. It increases irritability. All the things.
Right.
It's got. I mean, the science of it, I'm not across to be able to quote it for you, but I recently went to the social media summit when they were introducing the legislation around screen times for 16-year-olds, which was fascinating, and I was really surprised to see the amount of support for the rule because of the damage. And these were first generation of children coming out of that era, and they were leading the way and leading the charge, saying, it's just,
so good.
They noticed themselves.
Right.
I noticed that lots of children around me, if they've had too much screen, then they actually need a detox from it, and that's when they're really cranky and dysregulated, and they need to get out in the garden or in the grass or to have water or emotion or some kind of connection with reality to be able to to come back on track.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
So that brings me to my last question. And if you have more questions, feel free to drop it in the comments below. So maybe next time we can address it as well. But here's the last question, Dr. Tiff, when it's the other way around of the approach, right? When parents are too concerned about their screen time and really don't allow them to play as much.
Yes, this is such a great question because, you know, I've had some clients, and actually I'm guilty of it early days myself of being really, really over strict.
Wow.
And it actually is it's detrimental in different ways. So if you are going to deprive a current teenager of online time, they're essentially ostracized from their community. Their community exists online.
Right.
They communicate online.
Right.
It's like saying to me as a nearly, you know, that I couldn't use the phone after school.
Yeah.
This is how they communicate. It's how they belong and how they connect. I don't understand it. I don't understand snapping and VR and online gaming, but I understand that that's the current way of communicating and connecting.
Right.
So to remove that fully from our children, I just think that's going the other way.
Right.
It's not allowing them to explore this is the era they were born in.
Wow.
They were born into a technical era. We've got to embrace at least to some degree. Also their peers. This is a time when they're going to want to fit in and not be different. So to be the only child or teenager that does not have access to the world that they live in is damaging.
Right.
Wow. Now, it's not to say that they have to be in it all the time, because I'm against that too. But again, it comes back to balance, communication, connection. Every child's going to interact differently. There are some children who are extroverts and don't need as much of it. There are some children who are much more introverted and they rely on that space.
Wow.
Knowing your child, knowing the relationship that they're having with other areas of their life. How are they going at school? Do they have friends outside of online? Are they eating? Are they sleeping? Are they getting outside? It's a very individual approach that's needed. It's not one answer for everybody. As much as I absolutely agree with the legislation, because parents need that support to be able to enforce that for their children, it's absolutely individual approach. One of my children is better with less screen than the other. One of them is better at interacting with groups than the other. And we need to, as parents, know our children and modify. And that takes active parenting, not passive parenting, where pop the iPad on or pop the headset on or whatever and just let it go.
Wow.
Yeah.
I couldn't help but smile because, you know, when during my teenager times, like sometimes, you know, it's kind of like, Mom, I want to go out and hang out with friends, and like, no, you shouldn't. That's probably how it feels when they want to play.
That's exactly right.
Like, yeah, right.
My mum, God love her, she was so strict on me, and it just kept me from all of my friends, you know. And then growing up, I found myself being very strict on screens and sugar and all that stuff. And I just noticed that it comes back around. Like it's not, in my opinion, it's not the right approach. The right approach is some kind of balance that works for your family and your child, but complete no generally backfires. Yeah.
Thank you so much wisdom there. Oh, I'll be a better mom one day.
I mean, I'm still working it out. Like, don't get me wrong. I'm still, every day is a new day with a teenager. So I'm still working it out. But I think remaining connected and maintaining that relationship and understanding that how it's meant to look and feel is really important. So.
Summarizing our talks, so it's about building the relationship and like letting the teenager explore, because at the end of the day, digital era, gaming era or not, the specific need of the teenager is the same, while like trying to find their identity and like the responsibility of the parent is the same. It's just a different medium and a different world that we are trying to navigate.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, I'll see you guys in the next podcast. And yeah, leave in the comments any thoughts and comments, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you for listening to our podcast. If you find this helpful, please subscribe and share to your circle of friends. Remember, you can also follow us on social media, namely on LinkedIn and on Instagram at Bridge it.pod. And don't forget to share your feedbacks, your thoughts, or repost a slice of conversation that inspires you. Don't forget, use the hashtag #IBridget. See you in the next podcast.